Hey everybody, today I'll be taking a look at 4 board games in quick succession and sharing my thoughts on each of them. I'm doing them all in one video just to help me catch up through my backlog of games because I'm starting to fall behind again. So the 4 games I'm taking a look at are Grog Island, we have the Game of 49, we have Hick Hack in Gakawak, and finally we're going to finish off with Floriferous. But before I start my reviews on these games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer here in the UK. And if you use my link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Okay, so let's start off with Grog Island by Michael Renick. This one is a bidding style game that takes 60 minutes to play on average, accommodates 2 to 4 players. Now the game is going to look like this when it's set up. Essentially, you have all these peninsulas at the top here where you're trying to get some area control down because at the start of the game, you're going to get given a bunch of secret objectives. And these objectives can be things such as have the majority on the yellow peninsula, or it could say, for every one of these hand buildings you're in, you'll get X amount of points, or for every one of these coffin buildings you've got in, you're going to get X amount of points, and so on. And there is going to be some cross-contamination there, so I could be sharing objectives with other players. You've got your money track here, you've got your score track here, and more importantly, you have this part of the map, which is where the gameplay takes place. And this is a really cool mechanism, actually, that I've never seen before, and I would actually like to be seen again. So essentially, at the start of each round, you're going to be rolling all these dice, and you're going to put them on their matching colours, like so. Then on your turn, you are going to use these dice to bid to get presents down on these peninsulas. And when you do that, you are going to choose some of these dice, but they have to go in a certain order. So let's just say I chose this one here, I put it in the top box. Now every one following it has to be equal or lower than the existing one. So I could do this, I could do this if I wanted to, by putting the 4 there. Hell, I could even do this and bid 3 of them. Now, once I've got my bid locked in, it's going to go to the next player who is either going to raise that bid, they can completely reorganize it as long as the total pip value goes higher than the existing one, or they can pass. Now, if they pass, they're going to take a number of tokens equal to these exposed spots here. So you can see here that if the next player would pass, they'd get a coconut one, they'd get a fish one, and they'd get this map token. And the idea is then, you would come to the bottom part of the board and use those tokens to trade in to get different bonuses, which can be things such as money. It could be these treasure cards, which has a kind of a random number of money on the reverse side. You get more money there. You can interchange your objective cards, and you can even get these parrot cards, which will let you manipulate the dice and even bid the same as somebody else in turn order, which is a little rules break there. And then essentially, once everybody's passed, the person with the highest bid is going to pay coins equal to their bidding amount, like so, reduce their money, potentially spend some treasure cards if they didn't have the funds. And then they are going to start allocating their control pieces on the peninsulas. Now, the trick to this game is, though, that the colours of the dice are important because they match the building spots here. So, for example, I would have to use or to put a worker down on a green building because the green is next to the green building there. And then I'd have to do a blue building on this one. And the more dice you use means that you can potentially get victory points and even get these padlock tokens, which can lock players out of taking other buildings. And once that's done, you are going to rotate these around to mean that all the different tokens are going to be worth or useful for different things, and so on. And then as soon as somebody's got all their workers down, which is going to vary on the player count, like I think in a 3-player game, you're going to have 9 workers each. In a 4-player game, I think you have 7 each, which is going to pretty much fill up most of the map here. And then the player with the most victory points based on what you've acquired during the game and the ones of your secret objectives is going to be the winner. And these objectives aren't only going to relate to the majorities or the building types. They could be things such as, for each treasure card you have, you're going to get X amount of points. Or for each parrot card you have left in your hand, you'll get X amount of points. Or for each token you have, you'll get more points. And something I didn't mention as well is that not only can you cash your markers in for the upper bonus, you can also cash them in for the lower bonus, which means you have to trade 4 in at a time, but you can jump straight in and get a building down, which is a nice little shortcut there. But yeah, this game is, for me, to be honest, it all boils down to this one mechanism of how the dice are used. that manipulating things, even using those parrot cards to, vary things in your favor, and obviously managing your money as well, because you're going to have to set out quite a lot of the auctions, because if you do, then you're going to have the option to trade the tokens in to get more money in your supply and to keep you going. But you have to be quite careful not to be too chilled out or to sit back too far, because if you do, you're going to fall behind on deploying your people on the peninsulas, and inevitably that's going to catch you off guard, and you'll be caught off guard by the rush strategy, if that makes sense. But yeah, I actually do quite like this game, particularly because of this part here, this idea of, yes, I'm using these dice, which is going to cost me quite a lot of money. If I use more dice, I'm going to get more bonuses, but I'm leaving more opportunities for my opponents because they're going to get more of the tokens, which can be used for, great benefit. So yeah, that for me is where the game shines. The rest of it is okay. I'm not the biggest fan of kind of hidden objectives anyway, especially when there is potential for a couple of the players to share some objectives. Like, for example, I played this game the other day. Me and one of my opponents had the exact same objective. Therefore, we were diluting our scoring. And the other player had some objectives that did not contaminate with anybody else. Therefore, they scored the full amount of those objectives and therefore won. Now, I understand that you can try and predict what the other players are going for. Therefore, you can try and sabotage their plans by going for the padlocks, etc. But you're probably not going to do that because you're going to be focused on your own stuff. But yeah, this is definitely a lighter, a game on the lighter end of the spectrum, which is fine, but it might just be a little bit light for me. That being said, I would love to see this be used in something else. This is super cool, and I have a lot of bidding games in my collection, and none of them do this. So yeah, I like this part, but the rest of it is okay at best. And yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this one. A kind of a great mechanism in an okay game. So that is Grog Island, and I rate that one probably a 5.5 to a 6 out of 10. The next game we're talking about is the Game of 49. This is another auction and bidding style game. This is a 2 to 5 player game that takes around 30 minutes to play on average, and the board is going to look like this, which is essentially a 7 by 7 grid, hence the name, the Game of 49. And the idea is that we are trying to win control of these different numbers with the aim of trying to get 4 of your pieces or your counters in a row, column, or diagonal. And as soon as you get your 4th in a row, column, or diagonal, then you are going to be the winner of the game. And you're going to do this by revealing a new card, which will show the number that comes up for auction during the round. So for example, this will be the 25 up for auction, which, might not be a great number, but it could be a good number because this player wants it for this vertical here. And then in a simple auction fashion, you're going to go around in turn order, trying to raise the bid or dropping out. Of course, the last player standing is going to play all that money to the bank and put their control marker on the matching spot. Now, this game does have some cool little twists to it. For example, some of the cards in the deck will say things like this, where you've got the 49 in the middle that will come up to auction more than once in the game, so you can actually control power or change power of who owns the 49 spot. And also, only a few of the cards have this payoff part of the card here at the bottom, which means that you have to pace yourself quite carefully because you can quickly run out of money. So you can actually go through quite a few cards before your supply is topped back up with money. And the money that you get back is based on your control and influence on the board, because you can see here, you're going to get $7 per control marker you have on the board. So having presence down is just important in the first place, because if you don't have enough presence and you're being a bit too standoffish, then you're not going to have any money coming back to you. And also there's some cards that look like this, where you can see it's a lot more flexible, where this card is actually going to be quite valuable because you can actually win any of the 41 to 48 markers here, which of course is going to be important to some players. And that's even applies to some of the outer rims or the kind of middle rim here as well. And that's essentially how the game is going to play out. You're going to keep going until somebody has that 4 in a row, and the game is going to end immediately when that happens. Now, I actually do really like the concept of this game. I like the way that some spots are worth more to other players. You have to kind of hate bid it sometimes just to stop people in their tracks and block their rows and columns, which is quite cool. However, there are some flaws with the game. For example, often you'll find yourself that somebody will have 3 in a row. They just need their final piece. Like, for example, this red player here needs the final 4.
And when that happens, of course, that player is going to bid every single penny they have to win it, because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't you bid everything you have? And that really does play a big part in the turn order structure, because if you know that the player who's last in turn order has more money than this player, then you can just sit back, pass, and let the last player spend all of their money just to stop the other person from winning. And of course, when that happens, they're going to run out of all their money as well, and then the person who hasn't bid anything is going to be in a much stronger position. So there are some turn order issues I have with this game. And I think it's actually somewhat fixable. And whenever we played this game, we always house rule it by using a blind bidding system rather than the standard, round robin bidding system, which I think makes the game a lot more fun, and it stops it from being so drawn out and tedious by just constantly, bidding one more than the previous player. If everybody does one bid secretly in their hand, reveals it, it means that some people are going to be overpaying, some people are going to be underspending, and that kind of thing. So that makes it a lot more enjoyable, but it still is difficult to counteract that final spot mechanism where somebody is going to always bid every single penny they have, and it almost always leads to a anticlimactic finish, because you can either stop it or you can't. But I actually do like the rest of the game. I particularly love the pacing of the money. I think this is awesome. You can often find yourself just spending all your money, having nothing to compete with, and go through several cards before you get your money back. I also do think it's quite an obvious strategy in this game just to get your markers down on the board as quickly as possible, because if there is a payoff card early, then you're going to be in a much stronger position than every other player, and it's hard for the other players to counteract that and come back from that deficit. So I think this game has a lot of potential, but it also I think it has a lot of rough edges. And I think because my bidding and auction games, part of my collection is so saturated, that I don't think this one is going to stand out quite enough. But I do like it. We've played it quite a few times. We've had some fun with it, but I think we're just about done with it. But yeah, I'd love to see this one be reworked, remastered, with a few of these little issues I have being, ironed out and sorted, because I think it could be easily done. But yeah, that is the game of 49. Something I should mention as well is that the production of this game is absolutely terrible. Really cheap pieces, paper money, which is horrible to play with. So yeah, bear that in mind as well. But if you can pick up a cheap copy, then I would say give it a go, because there definitely is some fun to be had here. But ultimately, I'd always lean towards some of my favourite auction games over this one. And I'd probably rate it around a 6 out of 10 with the blind bidding mechanism, maybe a 5 out of 10 with the standard round robin. The next game I'm looking at here is Hick Hack in Gakawak, also known as Picknic. This is a Stefan Dora design, takes around 20 minutes to play and accommodates 2 to 6 players. Now the game is going to look like this when it's set up, where you have these 6 different tiles here, and every round there's going to be one of these cubes distributed on each of the tiles. And these cubes come in 3 different colours. You've got the green ones, the blue ones, and the yellow ones, and they're going to be worth 1, 2, and 3 points respectively at the end of the game. So everybody is going to get given a hand of cards, and these are going to be, randomly distributed. And these cards are going to come in 2 different types. They're going to be either the actual poultry cards that look like this, or they are going to be fox cards that look like this. And this is a simultaneous selection game. So everybody is going to choose one of the cards in their hand, and then they are going to reveal them at the same time. And then certain things are going to happen depending on what people choose. So if somebody chooses a card and nobody else has chosen it, then you're going to get all of the cubes on that card, like so, or on that tile. So for example, if I played the only green card, I would be the one who gets all of the cards from the green tile. Now, if a number of poultry cards are played of the same colour, then there's going to be a bit of a duel, where you're going to roll a die and add that to your strength here, and whoever kind of wins the duel is going to get the cubes, or you can be a bit diplomatic and share them out as you see fit. You have the option to play one of these kind of quick birds like this. Now these kind of do a quick grab and can run and grab a green cube before anybody else gets their hand on it, and that relates to the fox cards that look like this. Now the fox cards are interesting because if somebody goes to a region and you have a matching fox card, so let's just say, I don't think I have the colours here, but let's say I played a fox card, I revealed it, and somebody else went for the yellow one, and it was a poultry card, then I would actually end up taking the poultry card and eating that and getting that for end game points based on the strength here. So that's a really cool little twist there. So it's kind of like bluffing, double bluffing. Now, if there's several fox cards and a poultry card go to the same spot, then the fox cards will have a duel, just as if you were the poultry cards before. And that's pretty much how the game works. You're going to keep on going until all the cubes have been taken, and then add up your points based on, you know, the cubes you've collected and the poultry cards that you've eaten with your foxes. And then the player with the most points is going to be the winner. So as you can tell, this is a very silly, simple, chaotic game, but it is fun in its nature. You could definitely play this one with absolutely anybody. And to be honest, kind of simultaneous selection style games, I do enjoy them in general. You know, I like a lot of them. And some of my favourite games use this mechanism. Now, I don't think this is the strongest example of simultaneous selection. And the reason for that is because because you're doing it so often, you know, time and time again, and repeating yourself, it makes the decisions feel less consequential. So, for example, I love games like For Sale because you actually only do the simultaneous reveal so many times, which makes each selection feel more important. This one, you know, it's so chaotic that you're not quite sure what you're going to get, and you know, you were just basing it on, you know, bluffing and double bluffing. Yes, if there's a spot here with a bunch of breadcrumbs on it, you've got a good idea that there's going to be a bunch of poultry that are going to go there because they're going to want their fair share, and you might play a fox card to do it. But of course, other people are going to know that, so they might hold off on that tile, and therefore you're going to waste your fox cards, etc. But you know, I don't want to make this sound negative because I do enjoy this game. I've had a lot of fun with it, but I think it does have a bit of a glass ceiling on how many times you can play this game and have the most fun from it. So yeah, I like it. Again, just a little bit too chaotic for me. A little bit too light maybe. The decisions aren't quite there, and it ends up just, you know, you can probably do just as well by playing random cards as you can by trying to think your turns through. But you know, it's silly fun, it looks cool, and it's a bit of a throwback really, and I think you can definitely get a few plays out of this, and you know, play it with anybody and you can all have a good time. So that is Hit, Cack and Gakawak, again also known as Picnic, and I rate this one about a 6 out of 10. And the final game I'm talking about today is Floriferous by Dr. Steve Finn, Eduardo Baraf and Clementine Campedu. This is a small box filler game, takes around 20 minutes to play and accommodates 1 to 4 players. Now this is a set collection drafting style game, as you have this tableau of cards which are a bunch of different types. So at the top here, you have these public objectives that you're trying to aim towards. So, for example, at the end of the first round, if you have any of these symbols or any combination of these symbols, then you're going to put one of your control markers down and get the maximum amount of points. But the longer you take, you're going to score fewer and fewer points. But there is some crossover between the two, so you can be working on several at once. But the main structure of the game is by moving your player piece onto one of the cards in the next column, and you're going to do that based on turn order on who's the highest from the previous round. But this is of course the starting order. So for example, this player might really want this Daisy card, and they'll put it on there like that and collect the card. Now you can also see that some of these cards have these stones allocated to them, and the player with the most stones at the end of the game will get this little T card, which is worth another couple of points. But once you've moved your piece and you collect the card and potential stones on them, you're going to add them to your tableau, and that piece is going to remain in place, and then it will go to the next player. So let's just say the green player here wants to take this card, like so. They would add it to their collection. Now, some of these cards are going to score on a sliding scale like this. And you can also see that a bunch of these cards have different symbology on them. So they have a flower type, they have a shape surrounding that flower, which is important. And some of them also have these bugs on them. And you can also see that depending on the player count, some of these cards are going to be flipped face down. Now, you can also see at the bottom row here, you have these different shaped cards which are going to score you points based on different criteria. And let's just say the yellow players chose to take that card this round like so. And in this case, this card is going to say, I'm going to get 2 points per every little pentagon that I've got there. So hopefully I'm going to be collecting those as the game goes on. Now, I suppose the biggest twist on this game is the turn order structure, because whoever has taken the highest card from the previous turn, as in the green one here, taking the one furthest to the top, is going to be first in the next round. So it has this kind of trade-off thinking, yes, I really want to get this card. Perhaps I really want this scoring criteria because I've got a bunch of ladybugs here. It does mean that if I go that deep, I'm going to be last in the next turn. And it's all all about pacing yourself, when you're willing to sit back and sacrifice going first, or when do you really need to guarantee yourself first place and take the top card regardless because you need to secure that spot. And on top of that, this is just a simple set collection game. You're going to play through 3 rounds by going left to right, right to left, and then left to right again. And of course, the player with the most points at the end of the game based on those public objectives, your personal objectives, is going to be the winner. So yeah, this is a pretty much paint by number style game. There are a ton of these games out there. However, I do think this is a particularly strong example of this type of game. It is very breezy, it's charming. You can certainly see it has a stunning visual look here with these watercoloured flowers. And it's a true filler. This isn't going to be too taxing on the brain, but it's not brain dead either. You do have to think through, again, especially regarding that turn order. And I do like, again, the crossover of the objectives there, because you can be working on several things at once. Maybe I do want the ladybug criteria, because that is not only going to allow me to start collecting ladybugs that way, but it's also going to let me start aiming towards these 2 objective cards, which can be, kind of compounding when you're scoring and getting lots of bang for your buck there. So yeah, it's a clever little game. Again, it doesn't do anything terribly innovative, or it's not going to be, it's not going to have a standout impression in your mind, but I think it's going to be one that you're going to come back to because it is so breezy. It does take 20 minutes. And again, it fits that nice bracket of being a filler, but not being a brain dead filler. So yeah, this one I do enjoy quite a bit. I would give it a soft recommendation. I think it's amongst Stephen's better games. I do think he's a designer who's either hit or miss for me. Generally more miss than hit, to be honest. But this one is, I would lean towards that hit side of things. So yeah, I think this one is going to stick around for a little bit longer in my collection. I want to play it a few more times just to see how I feel about it. Am I going to tire of it quicker than I'd like, really? Because again, it doesn't do anything terribly inspiring, but it still manages to put a smile on my face. So that is Floriferous, and I rate this one probably maybe a 6.5 out of 10. If I'm feeling generous, I suppose. But I would recommend it to the right game group. And that's it, really. That is all the games I'm talking about this episode. So that's Floriferous, it's Hick Hack and Gakawak, the Game of 49, and Grog Island. So apologies if you wanted a full review of these games. I'm just a bit backlogged at the moment and don't really have the time or capacity to do that. But regardless, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other content too. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye-bye.